This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
Hello, listeners. Thank you so much for listening to our show. You can take your listening further and support our work by becoming a member. Members receive an ad-free listening experience, members-only bonus content, an invitation to join the DSR Network Slack community, a members-only newsletter, and members-only blog posts. For the month of February, take 5% off the regular membership price. Visit thedsrnetwork.com/buy and enter code SECRET. That's thedsrnetwork.com/buy, code SECRET. Thank you.
Welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies, where we try to solve the world's problems through the miracle of carbohydrates, one recipe at a time, with host Marissa Rothkopf and her dog, Bosco.
Hello and welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies. Today's guest is the brilliant journalist, author, advocate, and host of the eponymous daytime talk show, Tamron Hall. We talked and we cooked and we talked and we cooked, and well, let's just get to the show. Hello and welcome everyone to The Secret Life of Cookies. I have a very special guest today in her own kitchen, NAACP Image Award winner, multi-Emmy Award winner, GLAAD winner, Gracie Award winner. I mean, you've won so many awards and you're an extraordinarily accomplished human being. I have Tamron Hall with me, and thank you so much for joining me on a crazy afternoon in the kitchen.
It's such an honor to be here. Listen, it's an honor to be with you, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. I have only one disclaimer before we launch in. You will hear what sounds like a smoke detector with no batteries. That is not the case. That is my beloved Senegal parrot, Josephine Burtker, who when she hears me talking and she can't see, she wants to chime in. So that is not, my cooking is still a work in progress, but that is not the smoke alarm going off because of my cooking. That is Jojo Bird.
So everyone, let's be very clear. Tamron Hall's cooking is number one. No smoke alarms are ever involved in her cooking, which is awesome.
Not during this conversation. I can't say never involved, but not during this conversation.
Yeah, I once annihilated a meal I was making, like one of those young wife experiences where you're like, I'll cook a meal for my husband as if it were 1952. And in my small little apartment in New York City, and literally like the bacon in the pan was just a black outline by the time we were done. And the neighbor was at the front door going, can we help you? Is there something wrong? It was very romantic. Have you ever had an experience?
I've had many. So I actually started cooking 2009. My father passed away when I moved to New York, and I just started with NBC. And my dad was the greatest cook. My dad did. I would joke that I never had a meal cooked by a woman until I went to college, because my dad cooked every meal for me, my brother, my mother. And he was the kind of dad that when we'd go on road trips, he'd get up the night before and he'd like fry chicken and make sandwiches and wrap them all up. He was in the Army for 30 years, and he was just such a disciplined and focused person. And when he passed away, obviously many, many voids. He was my stepfather. I say he was the dad God meant for me to have. In fact, that's why we're doing an upcoming show on redefining family, because my family was defined in this very different way. He was my mother was his third wife. He was 25 years older. And on paper, I say, Dad, who would marry 3 times married, 25 years older, and the love of each other's lives. And so my dad was in the Army, came into my life after my mom was a single mom for many years. He did all the cooking and everything. And so when my dad passed away, went home to see my mother the first Christmas without him, and she had nothing. We had nothing. And my dad would always make, ham, turkey, roast, this. And I vowed when I was on the plane coming back to New York that I would learn to cook. And I have 2 friends, a phenomenal couple, they took me to Williams-Sonoma. They did these cook demos, but you couldn't get your hands dirty. You did just watch, It was great though. And the woman doing the cook demo said, you have to get a Barefoot Contessa book. You will not go wrong. Go with Barefoot Contessa. Full disclosure, I'd never heard of Barefoot Contessa. I would watch the Food Network occasionally just to drool over like barbecue, but I hadn't, really explored cooking. And so I got all of the Barefoot Contessa's books at the time that were out, like 5 or 6. And I started to work my way through the different recipes and trying them. And to your point about burning, there are a lot of things that ended up in the trash. There are a lot of things that and I think if I got that wrong, what's wrong with me? And as life turns out, I mentioned this on air when I was at the Today Show, and the Barefoot Contessa, Ina Gardner, invited me to her home in the Hamptons, and we cooked a meal together, and that really gave me great confidence. Her pep talk that day, and we became so emotional over the story of my dad as I'm here messing with these mushrooms that I'm going to prepare in a second. And so I just started this food exploration. But yes, my horror story once was I was making the Barefoot Contessa ham, which is this beautiful chutney glaze. And I'm walking across alone. I'm walking in my home alone across to start to put the table together. And the ham slid off the tray onto the floor. Thank goodness I didn't have carpet because, chutney glaze and carpet fibers don't mix. I picked up the ham. And we proceeded because no one knew and they loved that ham.
But now everyone knows, but that's okay.
That's okay. It was a couple of years ago. See, what is it? The 5-second rule? It's the no carpet rule. There you go.
But that is such a classic cooking story. Even I, who cook all the time, I'm constantly making mistakes. We get distracted, right? I am making something inspired by, I have to say, I tucked into your Jordan Manning book, and you're lucky I showed up, right? Because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to line up for the next book, which is coming out this year, I hope, right?
Yeah, I finished the second book in the series, Jordan Manning, and I went back in and tweaked some things. As it turns out, the first book was it's almost overwhelming to think that the book and the case was centered around missing girls and missing girls of color and the difference in how these cases are handled. And the Gabby Petito case was in the headlines just as we dropped the book. Well, now I thought about the second case some time ago, and I finished the book over the month of June, this past June, a year ago. And this is Jordan Manning leaving the Chicago area, traveling through the Midwest to aid a woman who's reached out to her because her sister is missing. And she believes that the husband had something to do with her disappearance, inspired in part by two cases. I've covered many like this, but unfortunately I've covered many like this, but two in particular that really haunted me and still do, and inspired this allegiance between these two women to try and find justice for this missing woman and learn where she is and what's happened to her. And right now in the news cycle, there are 3 major cases involving spouses accused of murdering their wives or having something to do with the disappearance. And so now I've gone in and reworked and finessed some of the content based on things that I'm observing in the media coverage regarding these cases. The case itself, that's done, and Jordan's part in exploring this case done. But each and every day I learn about the field that I love so much, and I continue to learn and like others become frustrated with how we still cover certain things, like, the need to understand that Gabby Petito deserved that attention and her family deserved that attention. But the many other cases that we saw in real time, parents on Good Morning America saying, please pay attention to my child too. That's the frustrating part that we all, I think, recognize in our business. And now I'm watching a few of these cases play out where women are missing and what I feel is are missing components of the conversation and how we cover these stories.
Well, that's exactly one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. I teach journalism just this week, and I've been covering the Gabby Petito case since it broke because it's so important for these kids to understand, even because I teach an intro to journalism class. Not every one of them wants to go off and be a journalist, but I want them to understand at the very least, if they become a sports broadcaster or, head of PR for the Jersey Devils, how to read and understand what journalists are giving them and how to honor, to respect journalists and how to read the news. The Gabby Petito case really brought it home for a lot of kids in my class, and reading your book while watching the coverage of the Tyree Nichols case was haunting for me, right? And to see how Jordan deals with that, right? That I think, and this is actually a quote from your book, which is the psychological game, and this is her talking, the psychological game that reporting such a tragedy plays on you. On the outside, I appear to be competitive, but inside, I sometimes question whether this is the way I want to cover people and tell stories. And I wonder how, as a journalist, because you kind of balance those two things, especially in these cases where you have to go into the community, just like Jordan does, and just like people are doing now with Tyree Nichols and every other case like it.
It is. And first of all, I thank you for guiding the next generation of people who will be part of the media world that we love. And I love that you also focus in not just on those on camera or those writing the scripts, but from the PR angle, all of these things. This is this cloud, if you will, that we operate together. And if we don't, it turns black and thunderous and ugly, when instead it should be illuminating and it should be bright and transparent, right? And so for me, going even, your students, and you said, this awakening with the Gabby Petito case, or even now you will have this conversation about Tyree Nichols and kids under the age of, 20, this will be an awakening for them in a different way almost than George Floyd, right? Because this was a clear incident, and George Floyd was as well. But if you watch certain stations and networks, it can muddy the water. But here you see compliance. You see no history of issues. You see a 2-parent home. You see a skateboarding, Starbucks loving kid, just like many of them. For me, it's heartbreaking because every generation will have this. Mine was Rodney King. And even though I grew up in this rural environment, I was emboldened when I heard NWA, seeing those lyrics that government officials wanted them banned only for them now, I believe, to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But a kid I'd never been pulled over. I'd never experienced, thank God, my parents having to give me the talk. We had different talks, of course, about me being a Black woman in this country, but I didn't have that talk about, hold your steering wheel and just in case, and all of these things that my brother and cousins had. I didn't have to have that talk, but I was as angry as the lyrics in NWA's song about the police because I watched this guy, and I was in college at the time. So now here I am becoming a journalist at Temple University, which is a phenomenal university, about 9 to 10% students of color, many of them from the Philadelphia area, but I'm still in this utopia. I'm in North Philadelphia, but I'm in this world of glitter and student loan debt, but still glitter, you know what I mean? And it left this huge mark on me personally. So fast forward, being a reporter in Chicago for 10 years and grappling with the words and the images on the newscast. And I'm not singling out that station, but just everywhere that I work, right? When I got in this business, we were still allowed to say the suspect's 5'11", Black, and had a orange shirt on. And I remember getting into a verbal altercation with a news director where I said, that's my brother. That's my cousin Richie, who just got back from his tour of duty. That could be anyone. And he goes, well, that's what the police gave us. And so that inspired that interaction. There's an interaction in the book where I talk, well, that's what the police gave you, but that doesn't make it right. And we see that with Tyree Nichols. Just because the police say it in a police report doesn't mean that the media then becomes a medium for disinformation.
Absolutely. Let's just pause for a second. I want to know actually what you're working on. What are you cooking right there?
I am we had chicken thighs. My husband's out of town, so I'm a sucker for sheet pan recipes. So yesterday I made feta cheese dill chicken thighs with crispy potatoes from the New York Times, which I'm addicted to. That's my go-to tonight, though, because we had chicken last night. We had steak the night before. I'm doing a whole roasted fish with roasted wild mushrooms. And it's it's an easy preparation. It's very simple. I'll try to get you down here. There are my mushrooms, and
those are that is the most beautiful collection of mushrooms too. I have to say, she does not just have some little white mushrooms there. She has
I'm
the
only
whole selection.
Following the recipe. Listen, the recipe said, oyster, shiitake, named a couple exotics, and then another one I can't even say, the miyataki.
Maitake, yeah.
Maitake. So no, I wish I was this sophisticated. I followed the recipe, and this is what it called for. So there I was walking through the Whole Foods across the street from my son's school right before I picked him up. And I grabbed these, and then it's just sage, rosemary, thyme, and I have a whole fish, and that's going to be the dinner tonight.
And you and your son glorms this up, right?
He's 3, so he will be having chicken quesadillas or cheese quesadillas. But I will say he does have a sophisticated palate when it comes to smoothies. He loves kale smoothies, but he won't know. My dream, because of this cooking journey that I've been on, my dream was to have this kid that, we'd walk into restaurants and people say, "Oh, what is he having?" And I'd say, "Oh, he's having the I don't know, whatever, the sea bass with the marinated cabbage." And that was my dream. And so when I started out, we were pureeing everything, and I was on a roll. All my friends were like, "How do you eat?" He eats pureed asparagus. I'm like, "Yeah, that's nothing." And there I am, just gliding through life, and he even had a pureed, like, I have this cookbook somewhere, it's a kid's cookbook, and it was like, pureed rice with mashed salmon, and he's eating this up until about 1. At the age of 1. And then it was lights out. It all went out. Boom. Chicken nugget, French fries, pizza. And so he's about to turn 4. We've gone through 2 years of that. He does not like ice cream. I adore candy. And so I keep candy jars filled in my house. He just started eating M&Ms. So he loves, finally, I broke him down to his mother's level of wanting candy all day. So he does eat chocolate M&Ms. He does not like ice cream. He loves yogurt. I know. So we go to birthday parties. Please, I just need any tips on how to make my child eat ice cream and cake. So no, tonight he gets a green smoothie, and he will have a little crispy fish stick, kind of pre-prepared, like little crunchy fish stick that he likes. But it is my goal to get him to explore more. He does have exotic fruit taste. This is what is this? This is one of the Korean pears. It's his favorite. He does have exotic.
So crunchy and juicy, I think.
That's what it is. It's crunchy and it's juicy, and he loves that. But we are working slowly out of the chicken nugget. And I don't begrudge it. I don't call it the pit of chicken nuggets because it's a salvation. But I would like for him to at least try a burger. I tried a hot dog last night. He wouldn't try it.
Think Verizon is expensive? Think again. Anyone can bring their AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal. So bring us your bill. Walk in, run in, pogo stick in, teleport if you can. Ride on the back of a rollerblading yak, or fly in on the wings of a majestic falcon. Any way you can, bring your AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal on the best network. Based on Root Metrics Best Overall Mobile Network Performance, U.S. Second Half 2025. All rights reserved. Must provide very recent postpaid consumer mobile bill in the name of the person redeeming the deal. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Neither of my children will eat hot dogs, and I grew up in a sort of, hot dogs were like the pinnacle of delicious.
Yeah, that's
as far as I was concerned.
Gold. I still think they're delicious.
So do I. And Dave, I don't know, maybe they've seen too many videos about how they're made. Doesn't bother me. I mean, we like ethically made food, of course, obviously. I don't know if I can be much help to you because I trained as I was working at Oxygen Television. I went and I trained as a chef because I knew that was what I wanted to do after being just a plain old writer. I wanted to write about food. So I thought, and I got pregnant in cooking school. There I was eating all these things, and my daughter inside, of course, wouldn't she be benefiting from all those tastes? And she's getting there. She's 20. She's getting there. She's eating lots more things now. But
well, there's hope. So I've got 18, 16 more years. It's interesting. No, I was saying it's interesting because I've even taken to Googling like why kids don't like vegetables, and I've come across these articles that claim that they taste the toxins in the green vegetables more than an adult palate. I am choosing to believe that because it will explain why. every attempt. You understand? I do roasted carrots with maple. We have tried I think I have it nearby. Oh, you've been there. Because now I had just bought some, I didn't want to make caramel sauce today. So I bought caramel sauce with the hope of putting carrots in it and and then slowly less and less caramel sauce. And then you're down to just the carrot. But I don't know if that's going to work.
I don't know. I ended up cooking a lot of vegetables and things like curried rice. And at some point they become they move past it, right? And I think, oh, those vegetables have melted down in there and that's good. Or the water that you cook vegetables in, then you cook your pasta in it. And I keep thinking, all that goodness from the kale. Yeah, that's in there, even though she's
Hopefully
not
it's
eating.
there. Yeah. Well, we're doing food division now. I don't know if you tried this tech. It's called food division. You pick the three things and you put them in front. And so we're doing that. And he did, in fairness to him, he did bite into a baby carrot begrudgingly. And because I bribed him that he could get an M&M candy after he ate the carrot. So we're making some progress there.
You're making progress. That's what's important. And you'll get there. I have a son who's like his own little gourmand, but is still like he's like off cooking Japanese food in great detail, knows every mushroom there is, but is still like, I would need a hot dog, or they're all still so particular, right?
I get it.
And think, when you're like, I could cook you anything you want, and you want me to air fry you a chicken nugget? Okay, fine, if you're happy. I was also inspired by that like brunch you guys eat at District, and with Groundhog Day coming up, Joyce Vance, if you know her, the legal analyst on MSNBC, among other things that she is, was like, what do you eat on Groundhog Day? And I'm like, well, let me go to the movie. And in the movie, he eats breakfast over and over and over again. But massively. So I made a muffin, so you can have it on the go, a pancake-y muffin with bacon in it. And I'm going to make a coffee maple glaze to pour over it. So it's sort of like all of your breakfast in one place.
We're big on muffins around here, because going back to all things surrounding the child, he does get all of his zucchini, carrot. We make different versions. There's a blogger that I follow. She's a therapist who teaches kids to not be picky eaters, kind of helps parents. But I follow her online, and she has great muffin recipes. So we are definitely team muffin around here, because it's portable. You move around. With my schedule. Like this morning, we have this baked oatmeal, kind of like it's got pears in it, and he loves it. There's no sugar in it. He loves it. I suffer through it because there needs to be sugar in everything that I eat, but he loves it without sugar. And I took that with me to the show for my breakfast, and then he had it for his breakfast this morning. So we're very portable around here.
Yeah, I make an oatmeal cake that even surprised me how delicious it was. Like, good, I can eat cake for breakfast, and it was all
I love that. I love it.
Made with maple syrup and whatever. Right now, I'm making my glaze. You're gonna, I guess, chop mushrooms?
I'm doing that and slicing my lemon. Actually, let me grab my fish, because I've got to stuff the cavity of the fish and get it all prepared there.
You're making the challenging meal now. I'm just like whisking.
I'm
whisking sugar for you.
I love it. No, this is really easy.
How do you, as a reporter, get the story? And you deal with this all the time, especially with some of the crime show that you also host. But how do you get the story and remain emotionally intact? Or how do you manage your emotions? Or are there times when you just don't?
I don't at any given time. I mean, it's for me, after being a journalist for 30 years and pretending to walk away, I finally, I think it's when I started doing Deadline Crime. And by then I'd become, I was open about my sister's death and her being an unsolved homicide. And I think that people knew this part of my life. And so they would come to me, and there was a look, right? You see this look of recognition that you are in that same club. You're in that same sad world, to be honest with you. And so I'd walk in, and, you'd have the chair where the family member or person was sitting, and then my empty chair. And you'd walk through, the lights, and you've seen the setup before of the interview and you walk in and there was always this look of, you understand me, Tamron, you get it. And I could see it without words. And it started to get to the point where I would walk in rooms and people would start crying. It just was a release of, she gets it, I trust her. And that allowed me to face reality, right? And it's so important. And I hope that in the next life, that after I've retired from on-air work, that I do have an opportunity to help young journalists or future journalists prepare for this. Because one of the things that I've talked about, I talk about it with Jordan Manning, and I talk about it much more with young students, is, an EMT or a frontline worker, they go through training to be prepared to walk into a disaster. I, as a journalist, I think I was like, oh boy, I had to be I think I was 25, 26. I'm working in Dallas, Fort Worth. I'll never forget. I'm the overnight. So, anything that happens from midnight to 4 a.m. is a fire or a murder. I'm in Dallas, Texas. And we arrived to Strip Mall, me and my cameraman, just the two of us. And, back then we had the two-way radio. We could talk to the assignment desk back at the station. And we were told that there'd been a burglary at this strip mall. We arrived and the man who owned a beauty salon had come in early, apparently, to do the laundry on the beauty salon. So he used a lot of towels. And so he was getting a jump on the day. The sun was rising, and it was like a script in a movie or a chapter in a novel. The sun is rising. I look over. We arrived before police. I don't even know how we learned. I think they said shots fired, and we heard the scanner. And this was Black neighborhood, underserved neighborhood. So we beat the police there, by the way, because it was called in as a burglary. And the man is there, and he is either dying or has died. But all I see is just a pool of blood. And I'm looking at my camera, and we're looking at, and we're freaking out. He's from Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm from, we're at the strip mall in Dallas, Texas. This man is in front of us. By then the police arrive, and at the same time or thereabout, his wife arrives, and I'll never forget it. And it's even now so difficult. She got out of her car, the door opened. I'll never forget. I couldn't listen to this song for a very long time. Toni Braxton, Unbreak My Heart. She was listening to the radio, I guess, when she was coming in. And the song I could hear it. And she ran over and she's screaming. And, it was chaos. A couple of officers, Chris Mathis, my camera guy, me, and this woman, and she's now on her knees and she's trying to caress him. And I, without realizing it, went over and I started hugging her and trying to comfort her and console her. Nothing in law and ethics of journalism, nothing in how to cover court prepared me for that. And I was in my early 20s. So now I'm there. A man has died. He's been murdered, his wife. And that's my job. And I'm supposed to go to the 7:00 newscast in the morning or the noon and report it and then go home. There was no offer of counseling. And I'm not saying they did, or meaning the station. They didn't do it. That's not a part of the system, right? They don't have counseling for the reporter or let's talk about it after work. There was no HR to come in and say, are you okay? And that's the business. And so I do believe there needs to be especially with such a lucrative business the networks and others have found in covering crime, understanding that these are, not only are we talking about real people, someone's mother, sister, friend, father, cousin, we are real people. And we're not designed and trained to leap into these situations in this way. When I did Deadline Crime, and even now, one of the rules I have is I cannot see crime scene pictures with an individual in the picture. I refuse. And that was after covering a case, college student in Missouri. And my team at the time didn't know me well. And I just started out Deadline Crime. And, they give you this folder to study and research the case. And I'm going through the case. And all of a sudden, in the middle, I see their pictures, but I kind of don't know. And I turn, and there it was. And I freaked. And I called and I said, if I'm going to do this show, I will be there. I will do whatever I need to do, but I cannot see these pictures. I'm not mentally in a space, and nor do I believe I will ever be. That's not what I do. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a EMT. I'm not. So I'm not a police officer, right? So I am comforted in accepting that I'm a human and there's no balance for me in this. And that's why Jordan Manning and As the Wicked Watch in that series was it came at the pandemic, and I'm trying to deal with life like everyone else. And first of all, we're worried about our own health, our family. We don't know if the air is safe. We don't know if the food that we're chopping right now is nothing. And as things settled down a bit, and things are still obviously in flux, but it gave me a chance to write this character and build this character born from my love of Nancy Drew as a kid, and also an opportunity to exercise, to purge some of these things and put it into this character.
This is the part where we switch to content for paid subscribers only. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. If you are able to become a subscriber, please go to the dsrnetwork.com for more information about all the benefits, of which there are many. Thank you to Tamron for being my guest today and being so generous with her time. You can tune in to the Tamron Hall Show on ABC. To get the recipe for this and other recipes, go to my Substack at marissarothkopf.substack.com. And if you would, please leave a review on the Apple Podcast Store. Thank you so much and have a great week.